everybody, it's Gabriel, and I am here with my good friend Micah, and also my new good friend Usha from Mars. How are you, Usha?
Hello, good. How are you?
Doing well. So thanks for joining us. One of the things we've been talking about is a lot of our customers, their automation programs are accelerating, or what we call scaling, right? You guys are obviously a huge success story. You guys are doing amazing work. Mars in and of itself is an amazing brand.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get some pro tips, as Mike has said. As you start to look at more and more processes, a global company like yours, when you think about sort of automation standards and standardization of creating automations and whatnot, like, where do you start? What do you recommend? Like, how are you guys doing it?
Even the standardization of your processes, I think, is really important too.
Yes, we're a global company. So we don't have standardized processes across segments, across countries. One of our Mars principles is freedom. So our segments are allowed to come up with the processes that they work best for them. So what we've been doing is we've been using automation to standardize. We've been using automation to create digitization at scale. We are looking to use, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
We're actually doing an invoice processing automation at scale globally, and we're looking to see the processes are different from country to country, but how can we create an automation that's actually going to help them process, standardize, and also digitize at scale?
I like that. That's really interesting. That's a different approach than most people would say. Most would say, we're going to optimize this process end to end. We're going to push it out to everyone and make them use it. But I like your approach. It's a little bit different to say, we're going to automate parts of this and try to standardize a bit that way. Tell me about how something like that is initiated, because with such a large company, I'm sure that that's almost like, for lack of a better word, herding cats, right? You've got so many people in different regions.
Yes. This was, I think, for us, a big portfolio that came through, and we needed to make sure we initiated the right way. So we had to gain the trust. So we started with the POC and then worked with the countries and say, which country can we take? But for our challenge, they gave us the most difficult country.
Of course
they said,
they did.
if you're successful with this, that's when we're going to start working with you with all the other portfolios. But that was it. We took a POC, a subset. We showed them we can do it. And I think that's when we got the trust and the confidence. And we're actually going to be implementing this across 18 countries by June of 2024.
That's awesome. I mean, it's great you have that level of visibility to know when you're going to be able to deliver that. Tell me about how the change management process works with that. I mean, because you've got a lot of different regions that you're worried about there.
Right.
Slightly different processes everywhere.
Yes. Right.
How are you handling that?
Change governance. I'm big on change governance. Wanted to make sure we had a steer call. We understand what the changes are, actually bringing these processes standardized as well, and what cannot be standardized, how do we govern it? Who do we have from an accountability for each country? And we've also been doing a top-down governance as well, whether it's funding, whether it's finance, whether it's changes. So we have top-down governance, and it seems like it's going to be successful that way.
You touched on something a moment ago that is a theme that keeps coming up. It's this idea around sort of trust and building belief by taking on, well, in your case, they're like, if you can do this, you can do anything. But you know, it could be at any level, probably, right? And maybe at, previous points in your automation program, maybe there was like lower hanging fruit that maybe wasn't as complex. But nonetheless, this idea of strategically sort of building trust so that you can then do this global type of program, I think it's a really interesting thing. Any like pro tips there in terms of like, just from a relationship building perspective?
We're ultimately humans, right? Building all the digital workers to help us be a better version of what we are. So working with our teams, working with the network that we have in Mars, we've created a steer code team, we've created a governance. We are actually having constant communications, transparency, giving them all the information, all the challenges that we may have with your process. How can we, standardize this? What is the funding? when are we going to be using the funding? When is that going to be expiring? Giving them the whole information from a funding governance and also transparency as to what's happening when, and communicating it at the right time has built trust and a confidence for the team.
Amazing. And communication's key.
Yeah.
Yes.
With so many different processes across different countries, there had to be some technical challenges that come up here, right? Because I have to assume they weren't all using the same platforms and they obviously didn't have the same processes. Talk to me about that a little bit. That had to present some challenges in its own.
So invoice processing, different countries. The first challenge we had is different languages and then different time zones. So we had to start working on solutions and tips, tools that would actually work and support. In some cases, we had to wait for the language support to be in so we could actually get the languages to be supported. And then from a time zone perspective, our team is global. So we were able to implement, we actually have resourced some people in other time zones as well. So our capacity increased as we started building this portfolio.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The last question I want to ask you about this is, how are you measuring success on this, right? You've got this global rollout. You obviously are influencing change in, I think, a very interesting way. How are you measuring and reporting on that success, right? Because it's one thing just to measure it, but I need to be able to talk about it and share the impact with executive leadership.
The success is measured based on our dashboards, the transactions, the volumes, and we look at the exceptions and how many documents have we been able to process that would have been processed manually. What is the benefit in an hours and what's the value that is realized to them based on the hours that we've given them back. There's a big, beautiful dashboard. We've actually been customizing our dashboards.
Yeah.
And we've been customizing our dashboards for each of the countries because the need of the country is different. Again, communications, transparency, sharing all the information on the success stories. It's not just documents that are processed.
Yeah.
How much time have we given back to the employees? How are they using that time back? And that's what we hear from all our leaders. You've given so and so, this team has gotten so much time back that they're able to put it back into marketing and sales.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the other thing that I would think of there is like the avoidance of financial penalties or fees because we're able to pay these invoices on time and regularly.
Yes.
The other thing I think of is when you're automating these, then the invoices that humans are doing manually, they're doing the hard ones, right?
Yes.
They're doing the ones where we actually need a human to maybe investigate, look it up, the amount seems weird, stuff like that.
Yes.
They can spend the time and focus on that as opposed to worrying about hitting their quota for the day of like, I got to crank through so many of these. So I think that's great.
That is really good.
I want to just recap this because I think you hit on some really interesting points.
Yes.
First, it was about how do we initiate global change,
Yes.
right, for our processes by automating some of this stuff. The next is how do we get through initiation? How do we start to work with some of these new functional areas that maybe we haven't worked with before, right?
Building the trust.
You guys are in a really great position that you were able to take on that, like the way you kind of phrased it as like a hard challenge.
Yes.
They said, well, if you can do this, then fine.
Yeah.
That's not the easiest way to do this, but because your team was skilled enough to be able to handle that, I think that really enables you to build trust right away. The other thing I think of is the tech challenges that you had to face. And I think it was really interesting the way that you think about how we're solving these different problems in different areas. And then finally, I would hit on the way that you're measuring success. I think that's incredibly important.
Right.
A lot of automation programs will just say like, oh, well, we delivered 5 automations this quarter.
Right.
That doesn't connect with an executive leader. And when we think about executive alignment, funding for our program, expansion of our program, that's not the language that connects. And so you guys are really thinking about what does the stakeholder care about?
Right.
What is the information that they want to see?
Yes.
Let's get some feedback from them.
Right.
Like, how has this impacted you? Because that information helps you to tell a story for other business stakeholders and to your executive leadership to say, this is the impact we're having in this area.
Right.
It's quantifiable.
Right.
It's measured through both hard and soft benefits.
Yeah.
And now we're ready to expand.
Yeah, it's always a why. Why are we building this, right?
I love what you guys have done this communication machine that you've built, whether it's the dashboard or the process along the way, I think fundamentally that's what makes it work, right?
Yeah. I do want to add one more point. We have global support 24/7, 365.
That helps.
That really helps to have a portfolio level support.
Yeah, and trust. That's essential. So yeah, that's awesome.
That's amazing. Wow, can't wait to check in with you again. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to share with us.
Thank you so much for allowing us to tell the story to everybody.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you.